Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do something different, but still with the spooky October theme, and I'm going to list my 15 favorite horror slash Halloween themed movies. This was incredibly difficult because I grew up on horror films and my mom was a huge fan and that's all she would ever watch, and so I kind of got introduced to horror films really young. Probably too young actually, but originally when I tried to write this list out I had about 70, and then I was like, okay, I can't do a video on 70 movies, that would take forever. Then I narrowed it down to 40, which was still an awful lot, and I figured even if I only took 1 minute for each movie, that would still be 40 minutes. So I finally narrowed it down to 15 of my absolutely favorite and essential Halloween slash horror films that I absolutely love. And today, going with my other Saturday videos that I have been posting, I'm going to show you another mug from my mug collection, which is from The Nightmare Before Christmas. It is the Mayor. I don't know how well you can see that. I love how huge this mug is. I can put so much tea in this, or hot cocoa, and I've had this for quite some time. I love the Mayor. He's such an idiot. So maybe it's also because I'm a Gemini and he's got that dual face, because, you know, on this side it's got his, you know, kind of scared and concerned face, and then this side it's got his jolly happy face. So yeah, I love this mug. That is the one I'm showing you from my collection today. Let me set that off to the side. I keep drinking this cherry hibiscus tea. I don't know what it is. I think I'm addicted to it. It's caffeine free, which I'm trying to stick to right now, and I love it. But anyways, enough of that. Let me get into this list with you guys. And this was really hard. So I'm gonna start with classic horror. I consider classic horror anything from like the 1950s era, maybe even a little bit before that, like Nosferatu would be considered classic. I also consider classic horror like something of the first of its kind or something to that nature. Some of them aren't technically the first of their kind, but I do like originals more than the remakes most of the time. There have been some exceptions, but in general I usually like the originals rather than the remakes. Anyways, the first movie on my list is from the classics list, and it is Phantasm. And that movie came out in 1979, and if you have not seen Phantasm, I suggest you go see it. It is older, so it is a lot harder to get like a newer generation to watch older movies, but I definitely suggest this one. It is very crazy. I definitely think you'll be a fan of it. It's one of the first movies that I watched with my mom, and it obviously came out way before I was born. But I remember probably being like 6 or 7 and watching this movie. Probably too young to be watching it, quite honestly. But I really was a fan of it, and I've loved it ever since, and I've seen it so many times. The next one, which is also in the classic section, is Evil Dead. And I don't mean the one that came out a few years ago. That was a remake. I'm talking about the original Evil Dead. It was filmed in 1981, which was also filmed before I was born, but I feel like a lot of people in Michigan know about this movie because Evil Dead was actually filmed in Michigan, and actually not too far from where I live, mind you. And when they first put out Evil Dead, it was supposed to be scary, but it was so low budget that it came off kind of campy. So then they made Evil Dead 2, which is a remake of the original, but meant to be funny. And then they came out with Army of Darkness, which is like what happens after Evil Dead. I am a fan of it. It's more of a comedy horror, not intentionally, but that's ended up what it ended up being, you know, just the comedy horror genre. And I don't know if I like it so much because it's filmed in Michigan. I'm hoping that's not the reason, but I also like Bruce Campbell, and I definitely suggest you watch those if you have not. They are classics in my opinion. The next movie I have, which is number 3, which is also in the classics list. Sorry if you hear a loud noise, the dogs are hyper. The next on my list, number 3, is Cube, which came out in 1997. This one was very interesting to me, and I really liked the concept of it. So basically, if you have not seen this movie, and I won't give away too many spoilers, but it's a bunch of people that are trapped in like this cube-shaped structure, I'll say, and each room has something different that's happening in that room. Try not to give too much away about it, but it's very interesting, and the idea of being in that situation is quite terrifying. I think that's why I like it. I don't scare easy, so I usually like things that are further from the norm, but I definitely suggest that you check that out. I thought it was on Netflix not that long ago. If it's not, I definitely think you should look it up. It's worth seeing. And then I will move on into the zombie category. This was hard for me to narrow down which movie I like most out of the zombie films that I've seen. I used to always think that zombies weren't really my thing, but apparently they are. Because when I started listing out all the movies that I like, there's quite a few zombie ones on here. But I would say my absolute favorite zombie flick is probably 28 Days Later, and that came out in 2002. They did come out with a sequel, which was 28 Weeks Later. I did not particularly care for the sequel, but the original 28 Days Later I really, really liked. I thought it was really well done. Next on my list is in the comedy genre, which is number 5, and it is Shaun of the Dead. It was hard for me to settle on a comedy one to pick to share with you guys, because I feel like lately, or at least in the past 15 years or so, they've come out with some pretty good comedy horror films. Not a lot, but Shaun of the Dead, I'm sorry, that movie is so quotable, it's ridiculous. And I love Bill Nighy, and he's in it as Sean's father-in-law. He's one of my favorite actors, and I really, really, really like this movie. And Simon Pegg is hilarious. I really, really enjoyed it, and I would say that's probably my favorite comedy horror film. The next category is vampires. There's a lot of vampire movies I like, and there's a lot I don't like. Like, I will not name them. I'm sure everybody hates the same ones. But I kind of have a mix of like between what I would consider classic vampire movies and, you know, the more romantic kind. I'm a huge Anne Rice fan. I have pretty much every book she's ever written. Well, most of them. I don't have her religious books. But I have pretty much every vampire book she's ever written. They are near and dear to my heart, and I love them. But my favorite vampire film is probably Queen of the Damned. And it's not only because I love Anne Rice, I love the story of it, I love the actors in it. The soundtrack for Queen of the Damned was a banger. And I could listen to that a million times, especially the Deftones song that is on there. I apologize now if the camera angle has changed and the lighting is slightly different. I had to stop filming shortly to let the dogs out because they are wound up because my brother just got home. So, sorry. So the next one on my list is my favorite video game that was transformed into a movie that is from the horror genre. And this one was tough because I really like Silent Hill and I really like the video game. I love the way they did the movie, but I honestly really love Resident Evil. I think they did an amazing job at translating that from the game to a film. I mean, obviously they did. There were so many sequels. It obviously did well. But I remember when the very first one came out, me and my brother and his then girlfriend went and saw it in theaters. I was just a teenager when that came out. But anyways, when it came out, I was really excited because I really loved the video game, and the movie did not disappoint. It was really, really crazy. And not to give any spoilers, but especially the scene where they're walking across that one lit up room and the grid starts slicing them in half. Like, wow. The next section I have on here, horror films from the 90s and 2000s. This one was the hardest category for me to narrow down because I feel like from the 90s and 2000s, there was just like an onslaught of horror films that was coming out like just nonstop, and they were putting out some really good ones. Some of them weren't that great, but some of them were just amazing. Like I can name so many that came out in the past, 30 years, I guess technically. But the next one on my list, which if you saw my coffee mug from my last Saturday video, which was The Crow. The Crow is probably my absolute favorite horror genre film of all time for so many reasons, and I don't know that it 100% stands the test of time, but in general, that film is amazing to me. The sequels they made of it are trash. Unfortunately, I wish people would just leave films like that alone and not try to duplicate it. If it fits good, leave it be. But I really, really love that film. Again, amazing soundtrack for that film as well, especially if you're into like 90s grunge. Like it had a lot of really good music in it, but the film itself, I absolutely love it. It's also got some sentimental meaning to me, so favorite movie, hands down. Another one of my favorite from that time frame in the 90s is, surprise, surprise, The Craft. That one they also are currently making a sequel of, which based off the trailer I'm not too excited about. From what I can see, not hardly anyone is excited about it, but I'm gonna try to be optimistic. I do have some friends that are gonna watch it with me, and hopefully it's it's good. But the original of The Craft is an amazing film, and I love how it's like centered around these four girls that are kind of like outcasts and find each other, find strength in each other, and it also shows what can go terribly wrong with that. But it's a really good movie, and I know it's a lot of people's favorite movie. Like, it's a cult classic. Next favorite one is Practical Magic, which just came out a few years after that. It's definitely not as dark as The Craft, but it has the same theme of witchcraft, which I love Practical Magic a lot because it was like the first film really about witches that kind of made it where it showed that witches aren't evil killers and, Satanists and all that, which, well, the 90s and the early 2000s, there was a big boom of people getting into Wicca and stuff like that. A lot of people were like, oh, Satanism, 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 and so it was really cool that they put out a film that's, I believe, based off of a book, if I'm not mistaken, and it paints a new light for it, like saying, hey, this is not actually what this is, and I really love it for that it's kind of like putting more of a positive light on it. So it's definitely one of my favorites, and I can see why so many people love that movie. The last one I have from the category of 90s and 2000s is Disturbia, which I don't know how well you guys know this movie, but it stars Shia LaBeouf, and he's this kid who got put on house arrest. And so he gets bored and he starts looking out his windows, and he starts noticing some really interesting things about his neighbor, who ends up being a serial killer. And I think the reason I really, really like that movie is it's a more realistic horror film because it's true, you don't really know what your neighbors are, you don't really know who lives in your neighborhood, and the just thought of that is really crazy. Like, wow, you could actually be living next to a killer and not know. And I think that's why I like it so much. It's definitely one of my favorites. I own it, so I've watched it several times. The ones that I think are the best Halloween movies for kids, I'm sure this one will be no shock, but Nightmare Before Christmas, I feel like, is the quintessential Halloween movie for young adults and kids because it has everything Halloween related in it, and it also has a good message in it as far as I think. I mean, I feel like the overall theme and message of that film is that instead of, trying to be someone else or live in someone else's world, be yourself. Be who you are. And this is one of the first horror films that I actually got to see, even though it's a kid's film. It came out when I was a kid, and I got to see it in theaters. And I remember seeing it and being, like, amazed with it. Because at the time, there wasn't really anything geared to a younger generation of, it's okay to be spooky, it's okay to be different and unique. And I really, 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 really love that movie, and I think that that message always stuck with me. I have several Nightmare Before Christmas tattoos. I obviously have tons of Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. And I just think it's one of those films that, you know, there's a reason why so many people love it, because it's amazing, especially for kids. So the other one that I chose in the kids section, which I get a lot of hate for when it comes to these specific films, but I believe the best Scooby-Doo movie that is Halloween oriented is Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. And you can fight me on that if you like. I know not everybody agrees with that, but I think it's the best Scooby-Doo movie. I mean, call me crazy, but it's amazing. Like, the music for it's great. Maybe that's why I like the movies I like, is because of the soundtrack. I have no idea. I really, really liked the songs in it, and I would listen to them I don't know how many times. It's just a really good movie. Like, I love the storyline for that. I love the actors that are in it. Tim Curry plays like the bad guy in that. Like, it's such a good movie. So I definitely think that's one you should have kids watch. I'm not saying the other Scooby-Doo movies aren't good, and I have had arguments with people. I even cosplayed Thorn from that movie along with two of my other friends. We played the three in that. But yeah, so I will insert a picture of that. I definitely cosplayed that for Halloween 2 Halloweens ago. And it's just, how could you not love that film? One of the only newer ones that I have on here, and I know for a fact it is on Netflix right now if you want to go and see it, and that is As Above, So Below. I really like that movie, and if you don't know about it, it is about this group of people that are in the French catacomb, and they're just going deeper and deeper into the ground, and definitely just as much as a psychological thriller as it is like horror. Like, I really, really like how they did that. I was worried I wouldn't like it because, you know, it's one of those first-person camera films, but it's honestly not as shaky camera work as a lot of those tend to be. It's actually pretty decent as far as that goes, and I love the storyline. The storylines were really great. I really like the actors in it. I definitely think it's worth a watch, and it is on Netflix right now, so if you have Netflix, definitely check it out. It came out in 2014, I believe, and it's really, really good. The last category that I have, which is number 15, and this one someone had shown to me, and it is and the movie is called Tusk, and it came out in 2014, and it is a weird movie, but it is a scary movie. It is crazy. If you've not heard of Tusk, I definitely suggest you check it out. It is very interesting, and I don't want to tell you exactly what it's about because I don't want to give it away, because it is crazy. But it's definitely one of those ones where you're like, I can't stop watching. It's just the thought of this being a thing is just too much. But it stars Justin Long as the main character, and he does such an amazing job. It is crazy good. It's weird good, but it's good. So, again, I will list those 15 movies off, starting with the last. So I had Tusk, As Above, So Below, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, Nightmare Before Christmas, Disturbia, The Craft, Practical Magic, The Crow, Resident Evil, Queen of the Damned, 28 Days Later, Shaun of the Dead, Phantasm, Cube, and Evil Dead. I would love to know what your guys' favorite spooky horror Halloween films are. Please list them down below. Tell me why you like them. Tell me something interesting about them. I would love to check out something new. I feel like I've seen everything there is to see, which I'm sure isn't 100% true, but definitely leave your recommendations below. If you're into the spooky horror theme thing, even if it's a kiddie Halloween movie, I want to watch them all. I love, love, love horror films, and I love Halloween films, so I'm definitely willing to check out any that you suggest. And I hope you guys found this video enjoyable. Please give it a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe and hit that bell notification, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.